Just Jennifer Gray with an update on Dorian, now a dangerous Category 3. This is a major storm. Once again, it has been upgraded. 115-mile-per-hour winds now with gusts of 140. Just Jennifer Gray with to the north at 7 miles per hour on this track. It's going to continue to head to the north and east right now south of Charleston, but it looks like the landfall will most likely be somewhere in North Carolina. Look at this, already seeing those heavy rain bands push on shore, so we could see some flooding across portions of South Carolina as well as portions of maybe Georgia, but mainly South Carolina is where we're going to see most of that flooding and the heaviest rainfall at this point, with it continuing to push to the north and then eventually the north and east, dropping back down to most likely a strong Category 2 by the time it makes landfall. And it looks like the most likely spot will be somewhere along the North Carolina coast. So we are going to see a lot of rain, wind, beach erosion, even storm surge. Places like Charleston, very, very vulnerable. We could see one of the highest tide levels that Charleston's ever seen could come in around second or third highest tide levels Charleston's ever seen. So we are going to see some major flooding there. Also, 5 to 8 feet along that coast, and then once you get up to North Carolina, 4 to 6 feet for the Outer Banks, and then 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. This storm has been going on for a very long time, but it is still a very powerful storm, to say the least. Major hurricane with 115-mile-per-hour winds moving up the coast of the Carolinas.
All right, so millions are still up and down the East Coast, bracing for what Hurricane Dorian will do next. The president, meantime, is again this morning insisting the state of Alabama was in danger. In an Oval Office meeting on Wednesday, he showed a map of Dorian's path. The map from the National Hurricane Center, though, had a small addition to it in Sharpie. It's this part in black, showing the storm potentially affecting a section of Alabama.
So the president claimed that the map was the original forecast, but a similar image released by the White House itself last week, along with data from the National Hurricane Center, contradicts that statement. Pretty clear terms there. Look at one with the Sharpie, one without the Sharpie. Joining us now, CNN senior Washington correspondent Joe Johns and CNN meteorologist Allison Chinchar. Joe, you've covered this White House for a long time here, and it's not the first time we've seen sort of a backfilling by White House officials of a presidential claim. Are they telling you with a straight face that there's facts to back this up?
They're not telling us any more than the president has said, and you know that sort of follows a pattern that's occurred here at the White House. The president will say something, or the president will say he wants something, and then people here at the White House or other aides will try to fill in the facts, which of course is a significant problem. Also have to point out that the question of the Sharpie, as many Americans know, the president has used Sharpies or markers repeatedly to sign documents in public and then show them off, executive orders, whatnot. Now, this issue has certainly been picked up on Twitter and others as something very funny, but can also be viewed as something very serious. Here we have a national emergency, an enormous hurricane coming up the coast of the United States, and multiple times, we're about up to 5, the president has asserted or either reasserted or tried to prove something he said simply wasn't true. And that's the case, of course, with this morning and the tweets. Let me just read you the tweets that the president put out this morning. In the early days of the hurricane, was predicted that Dorian would go through Miami or West Palm Beach. He goes on, certain models suggested Alabama and Georgia would be hit as it made its way through Florida to the Gulf. He goes on, instead, it turned north and went up the coast, where it continues. In one model, through Florida, the great state of Alabama would have been hit or grazed. Now, it's important to point that out because when you look at the models, there was certainly a possibility at one point of just one corner of Alabama being grazed. But what the president showed on that map with the marker essentially points out that the president was suggesting that all of Alabama could have been swallowed, and that's certainly not a fact. Back to you.
Okay. Joe Johns, thank you for that. Let's go to our Allison Chinchar now, our meteorologist, to help explain why that is simply not a fact. Allison.
Yeah, so I mean, if I asked any one of you to interpret this map behind me, a lot of you would struggle. And it's not a knock on your intelligence level. It's just simply because these are meant to be used by professional meteorologists for a reason. They're very difficult to look at and understand what's on them. This is the map that the president tweeted. And I would like to note that the official National Hurricane Center track is within this. It's the red line with the red circles there that you can see. But again, it's hard to even see that amongst all of these countless lines that are in here, which is why they have the disclaimer at the bottom. National Hurricane Center advisories supersede this product. If anything on this graphic causes confusion, ignore the entire product. That's why the National Hurricane Center takes a look at those. They try to condense that many lines into the ones that they tend to think are more reasonable. They will throw out the erroneous ones. They take into account the ones that have higher resolution, and you end up with a map that looks more like this. And notice, none of these. This was from the same time that original tweet was referencing. Look how fewer it is. It's much easier to read. And none of them, by the way, go to Florida. But also another thing to note is that the president tweeted out a graphic that was several days old. It was nowhere near the most recent map. This should have been the one that he did tweet out. This, by the way, even only has one left hitting Florida, let alone Alabama. So it all comes back to messaging. This is why the National Hurricane Center does not use spaghetti plots to tweet out. They tweet something like this, which is much easier for people to understand and know where the track is going to go, which is why we always tell viewers to trust the National Hurricane Center to get their track information from.
Listen to this. A farmer walked into a Costco and bought 100 generators with their own money. That is $50,000 total. Know what's going to happen to those? They're going to be sent to the Bahamas. This is all in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Costco there yesterday. And then another customer Facebooked a picture of the same farmer from behind because the farmer did not want any attention about it. In other words, wants to stay anonymous. He says that the focus should be on helping the victims. Well, a longtime friend of the man, who is Bahamian, tells our sister network, CNN, that there's a network of people waiting in the Bahamas who will help distribute the supplies like the generators. That's awesome.
on this most recent.
Girls gotta stick together, that's why.
And Allison, I know you have more on this most recent update. Downgraded to a Category 2, but that is still nothing. Nothing to sneeze at and certainly should not be ignored.
No, especially when you consider how little the winds actually dropped. We only went from 115 to 110 miles per hour, a difference of 5 miles per hour. But that threshold between a Category 2 and 3 falls within that. So that's why you're seeing it go down to a Category 2. But again, it's a difference of 5 miles per hour. Trust me, 110 miles per hour is just as capable as 115 to knock trees down, power lines, all of those issues. So again, this is still a very serious storm. Forward movement still north-northeast at 8 miles per hour. It is getting so close to land. And when we say it, we mean the center of circulation, which is what they would deem a technical landfall. So the question is, does it make landfall today in South Carolina, or do we have to wait until tomorrow when it crosses over North Carolina before we see a technical landfall declared? Here's a look at the brand new track that just came in at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. Again, they have pushed these products back down to a Category 2 since the storm has weakened some. But again, keep in mind, all throughout the day tomorrow, we still expect it to maintain that Category 2 strength. So this isn't necessarily going to be a huge trend where we're dropping that wind speed every couple of hours. It's really going to hold its own here for at least the next 12 to 24 hours. Tornadoes are one of the growing concerns for this area today. We're talking areas of North and South Carolina. This tornado watch in effect through the afternoon hours. We've already had over a dozen tornado warnings so far today. Here's a look at that storm. There's a center of that circulation on radar. You can see it's starting to slide up to the north, but it's these outer bands that start to come ashore. That's where the biggest concern lies, especially with the potential for tornadoes. We have 2 tornado warnings that exist right now, again, coming off of some of those feeder bands on shore. That's what's bringing the chance for not only tornadoes, but also waterspouts and damaging winds. Here's a look at the map. This includes states like Virginia, North and South Carolina. The orange area here, that's a level 3 out of 5 risk for the severe storms and the tornadoes. But that's not it. Again, heavy rainfall is also going to be a major concern here. Widespread amounts stretching from portions of Virginia all the way down to South Carolina of about 4 to 6 inches. But you do have some of those areas, especially that get caught up in the trailing rain bands, or especially along the coast where 8, 10, 12 inches is not out of the question to get out of this, in addition to the storm surge. Again, 10 or 12 inches of rain enough would cause plenty of flooding, but you also have to worry about the storm surge. Here you can see places like Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Hatteras, all in that 4 to 7 foot range. The 5 to 8 foot range is the area that extends from Charleston, Erica, all the way up to Myrtle Beach. So it's really a multifaceted layer of impacts here, where you have the rain, the storm surge, the gusty winds, as well as the potential for tornadoes.